Hello, welcome to a special briefing discussing the hottest day of the year so far in Sausalito at 91 degrees and touching a little bit on why some inland locations that are typically a lot hotter than Sausalito actually were cooler today. Now, the reason for this is, in this case, it is not because of a big dome of high pressure, because we did not have that today. As a matter of fact, we have more of a zonal flow, and we're expecting more of a cooling pattern with incoming troughing this weekend. What did it today was the wind. And that is typically what causes our warmest weather in the coast and bays. Today, we had a more of a northerly wind, even easterly in some locations. You're looking at this. This is what was going on. This is actually what's going on right about now. 22 minutes ago here, so San Rafael was reporting an east wind here, and we have here a northwesterly wind in, this is right around Mill Valley, Tiburon area. And notice that there's an 80-degree reading here, and there's a northwest wind. And what the northwest wind does in South Marin, particularly the Mill Valley, Sausalito area, is it causes downslope warming over up and over the hills. Because a lot of these hills in South Marin are facing the northwest. When we get northwest wind, the air goes up and over those hills and compresses and warms. And even if we don't have this huge blob of hot air aloft, even if the air is just relatively warm at the 5,000 foot level, when it mixes down to the surface, if the wind direction is such that it's bringing it directly down these hills, causing downslope warming, it's going to get very warm. Whereas if the wind were out of the south, I showed previous videos where the wind is predominantly out of the south. In South Marin, that's a very different story. When that happens, you have cold marine air pushing well in to places like Sausalito, Mill Valley, even San Rafael, and you'll have days where it maybe won't get out of the 60s, days where it does not clear of marine stratus clouds. And today, of course, a very different story. Warm, crystal clear day with actually 91 degrees at my house in Sausalito, which is the hottest temperature this year by far. And that's all because of the wind. And see how interesting this is, where you had this northwest wind here in Mill Valley, 80 degrees. You go further inland, which is usually hotter, but this area here, you had a southwest wind, quite significant, up to 16 knots and 68 degrees. And that's because there's more ocean air seeping into certain inland areas where the terrain is flatter, and so you're more exposed to that onshore wind. And you see, northwest wind, it's still slightly onshore, but when you have terrain features in the way, the terrain can actually make it hotter as the wind goes down that terrain. And if you had a warm start, which we did today, had a relatively warm start with no clouds, then that northwest wind is going to allow a lot of heating to take place, because it's eliminating the influence of the ocean and the onshore wind that usually keeps this area in South Marin in the 70s. This is why we hit 91 degrees at my house today. Now, I'm going to show you here the 24-hour temperature change, and this is an interesting one to look at, and it really does a good job of depicting exactly what I'm talking about. You see, a lot of the inland areas are running several degrees below of what they were yesterday. Even some hillside locations along the coast here, where it's exposed to more direct onshore wind, 10 to 12 degrees cooler than yesterday. But you look here in the Sausalito area, there's this one station that's reporting 6 degrees warmer than yesterday. My personal weather station was actually 16 degrees warmer. Yes, because we had 75 yesterday and we had 91 today for a high. So in one day, even when most inland areas are cool, if you get the right wind direction, just enough offshore wind compressing down the mountains, temporarily kicking out that onshore, cold wind, that cold air from the ocean, if you push it well out to sea, and you have this situation where some areas, among all this cooling, some areas, see over here, Berkeley, Richmond, areas that are right on the downslope of mountains and hills, when you have a northwest wind or even a northeast wind situation, which is what we had at my house, had some northeast winds which would move down the East Bay hills, compress and warm, and cause this warming in San Francisco, this warming in parts of the East Bay, this warming in parts of South Marin, where you have the wind favoring that warming. I just wanted to show you briefly the large-scale pattern that actually caused this shift in the winds to a slightly more northerly wind over places like Sausalito today, which is what caused my place in Sausalito to hit 91 degrees. So I'm going to put this is going back to 7 in the morning this morning. This is the water vapor imagery over the Pacific Northwest region, and it does show a little bit of Northern California. The Bay Area would be right under where this image cuts off here. But I'm showing you this angle because I really want to emphasize this upper level low pressure system. See, as I put this into motion here, as we go from this morning to this afternoon, notice the spin here. That's an upper level low pressure system. It's an area of counterclockwise wind circulation, pardon me. In the northern hemisphere, winds circulate in a counterclockwise flow around low pressure systems, and a clockwise flow around high pressure systems, and we do have a high pressure system out over the Pacific Southwest, way to the southwest of this frame. And the combination of that high pressure system and this low pressure system and this positioning is causing a northerly wind for some areas here, up aloft, which is mixing down to the surface in some spots. And that northerly wind is it caused all the warming in Sausalito today. If I show you a different map, this is the European model projection for sea level pressure at 7 p.m. Pacific today. And this is basically an hour from now. This is showing you what's basically going on this afternoon. And you can see this is the low pressure center over here, this 1012 millibar value. This is this yellowish shaded area is a 1012 low pressure system, and you can see the edge of a 1028 high pressure system out here over the ocean. And of course you remember that counterclockwise around low pressure and clockwise around high pressure dynamic I was talking about. That's giving you north winds right down the Pacific Northwest, right down the Willamette Valley into the Bay Area here. So that's classic. That's a classic offshore. It's a light setup. It's not like a strong autumn offshore flow setup. It's not like what we get in the fall, the Diablo winds and the Santa Ana winds, when those really get cranking. But it is kind of a taste of that. And basically this is what caused the north wind to disrupt the typical west-southwest wind flow. and cause areas like Sausalito, which are favored by downslope warming from northerly winds, to heat up so much. So we had our hottest reading at 3:15 p.m. and you see the winds at that time were north, even northeast at sometimes, right around 250. It was northeast, easterly even. And then we started shifting a little more northwest, and that's when cooling started to occur. So I'm going to show you this in the temperature now. See, we hit at 3:05, it was 90.9. We did actually hit 91 in between 3:05 and 3:10, and then at 3:10 we were down to 90.1. And then you see a gradual cooling trend. You can see it cools a little bit, and then the sea breeze relaxes, and then it goes back up, and then sea breeze comes back in, and we start dropping again with that northwesterly flow replacing the northeasterly flow, bringing a little more ocean air through the coastal gaps to start bringing this temperature down a little bit. But yeah, very, very hot day, hottest day of the year so far in Sausalito, as you can see. If I go here for, see today, 91 degrees. If I go yearly statistics here, max 91 degrees on August 15th. Coincidentally, just a couple days ago, we had the lowest temperature since I installed this weather station just a month ago, 50.4. And today we have the highest since it was installed, 91 degrees, and that is the highest we had this year, because I had a temperature sensor, a much more simple temperature sensor that I had outside taking measurements since February, from February until about last month, and that had only recorded 88 degrees. I believe it was in early July that I had an 88-degree reading on that, and that's all I had this year. So this definitely beat a new record. And just to show you something interesting, I'm going to look at the data for my dad's farm in Nevada, the Blue Marble Acres farm stand. Shout out to Blue Marble Acres. And if I look at the history for this station today, only 79.9 degrees. Much cooler. Now, if I go and look at the wind, actually I can't show you the wind for that station because the station is misaligned, so it's not getting accurate wind direction information, unfortunately, but I can show you wind for the surrounding stations, and I just really want to show you that because I feel like it would be really interesting. So I can show you the latest wind. I'm just going to go station plot here, and it should now be loading the winds that we had. Yes, here we go. See, look at the wind bar. That's showing west here. West southwest. This is showing west northwest. This is onshore wind. No wonder it's only 70 degrees there while it's 80 degrees here. It's because we have onshore wind coming right off of the ocean into these areas. Whereas you move here, we have more, instead of a west wind, we have more of a northwesterly wind. You see some areas here where I'm pointing with the mouse now, northeast. See where you have this offshore wind. Look at this 79 degrees here north of Mill Valley. Look at 82 degrees. And the wind is slightly more offshore, and in some areas the wind is calm. You see this little plus sign means a calm wind. So yeah, just wanted to show you that. I think it's very interesting, these wind differences, and how for inland areas it's actually a slightly below average day, and for Sausalito we had the hottest day of the year so far, well above average, 19 degrees above average to be exact. If you take our average of 72 degrees and compare that to the 91 degrees we had today, that's 19 degrees above average, and that's all because of wind flow. That wasn't even a heat dome. It wasn't even a heat wave aloft. It's just wind flow, bringing that relatively warm air not hot, but relatively warm, seasonably warm from 5,000 feet all the way down to the surface, without there being a marine inversion layer with cold ocean air bringing onshore flow. That is what heats up the coast and bayside areas. That is why sometimes early fall is hotter than summer in these areas, because the wind will be predominantly out of the west to northwest during the summer, or even southwest, and then in the fall it starts to shift more northwest, north, northeast, and that's when we get heating all the way out to the coast. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. I hope you were able to get something out of this video. I just wanted to do this quick update because we had such a big event, which is this record warmth for Sausalito, the hottest day so far in 2024. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.